The loner rancher expected a plain bride, but a woman too stunning for him stepped off the stagecoach. Cale Thorne wiped the sweat from his brow as he surveyed the endless plains stretching before his ranch. Solara Prime was a harsh world, with red dust that clung to everything, twin suns that scorched the ground during the day, and nights so cold that even the thickest thermal suits barely kept the chill away. Most people who lived here were settlers, hardy souls who had left the comforts of Earth behind to carve out a life on the frontier. Cale had been one of them for over a decade, living alone with nothing but his livestock, his trusty droid, and his thoughts. He had built his ranch from scratch, raising genetically engineered livestock that could survive in Solara Prime's harsh environment. He had expected to spend his life like this, alone, working from sunrise to sunset, with no distractions other than the occasional trader who came from orbit. But the isolation had begun to weigh on him. That's why he had agreed to the program. A mail-order bride program for frontier settlers. Earth had sent people to the colonies with one goal, to make sure humanity survived. Part of that meant sending women trained in survival, engineering, and diplomacy to remote settlements. Cale had expected someone plain, simple, someone who would quietly settle into ranch life without asking too many questions. He didn't need someone flashy or demanding, just someone normal. But the stagecoach arriving today was about to change all that. The sound of the heavy wheels scraping against the rocky ground reached Cale's ears, followed by the hiss of the atmospheric seals as the stagecoach opened. He squinted against the sunlight, his hand shading his eyes. And then he saw her. Selene stepped down from the stagecoach, and for a moment Cale couldn't speak. She was nothing like the image he had built in his mind. She was tall, with flowing dark hair that shimmered even in the harsh light of Solara Prime suns. Her eyes were sharp and alert, scanning the horizon with a confidence that made Cale feel both uneasy and curious. Her clothing was simple, but somehow elegant, as if she had been designed to look perfect even in the dust and heat of the frontier. Cale cleared his throat, trying to remember the polite words he had rehearsed. "You must be Selene," she turned to him, a small smile playing on her lips. "I am, and you must be Cale Thorne. I've heard a lot about your ranch." Her voice was calm but carried an undercurrent of strength. Cale felt a strange flutter in his chest. He had expected someone shy, awkward maybe. Not this. Not someone who seemed almost larger than life. "Well, come on then," he said, gesturing toward the ranch. "It's not much, but it's home." Selene nodded, her expression thoughtful as she glanced around at the red plains, the distant mountains, and the scattered livestock. "It's beautiful," she said softly. Cale snorted. "Beautiful? You mean hot, dusty, and full of danger, but I guess it has its moments." She smiled again, a small, knowing smile, as if she understood exactly what life here demanded. Cale felt a mixture of admiration and unease. She was clearly capable, maybe more capable than he was used to. The ride back to the ranch was quiet. Selene observed everything. The way the livestock moved, the layout of the ranch, the tools stacked neatly by the barn. She asked questions, not idle ones but practical ones about irrigation, feeding schedules, and solar energy systems. Cale answered, half impressed, half nervous. This was not the timid bride he had imagined. When they arrived at the ranch, the first thing Selene did was step down and inspect the solar panels with a careful eye. "You've done a good job maintaining these," she said, "but some of the connectors could be more efficient." Cale felt a twinge of pride and a bit of fear. He wasn't used to someone noticing the small details, let alone suggesting improvements. "Do you do this often?" he asked, trying to keep his tone casual. "Everywhere I go," she replied. "Survival on the frontier isn't about luck. It's about preparation, observation, and action." Cale nodded slowly. He liked that answer. It was practical, grounded in reality. But he also felt that Selene's presence brought an energy he wasn't sure he was ready for. As the day turned into evening, they began the slow work of settling in. Selene helped with the livestock, moving with a grace and efficiency that amazed Kale. She could read the animals' moods, sense when one was sick, and calm the more restless ones with a quiet command. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, Kale realized that this woman was unlike anyone he had ever met. That night, they ate a simple meal in the small dining area of the ranch house. Kale watched Selene as she spoke about her life on Earth, about her training, and about why she had volunteered for this program. She didn't speak with arrogance but with confidence. She was here to help humanity survive on the frontier, and it was clear she intended to do it well. "You make it sound easy," Kale said, shaking his head. "But this planet, it doesn't forgive mistakes." Selene's eyes met his. "Humans are survivors," she said simply. "We adapt. We endure, we thrive. That's why I'm here. That's why I wanted to come to the frontier, because humanity has a chance here and I want to be part of it." Kale felt a shiver run down his spine. She wasn't just talking about helping him with the ranch. She was talking about something bigger, something that gave him hope he hadn't felt in years. As the twin moons of Solara Prime rose over the plains, casting silver light across the red dust, Kale realized that life was about to change. He had expected a plain, simple companion. Instead, he had found someone extraordinary, someone who challenged him, inspired him, and might just save humanity on this harsh world. He didn't know yet whether he was ready for all of that. But as he watched Selene quietly inspect the ranch under the moonlight, he felt a strange certainty that together they could face whatever Solara Prime had to throw at them. And deep down, he knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The next morning, Solara Prime greeted the ranch with its usual harshness. Twin suns hung low over the red horizon, sending long shadows across Kale Thorne's property. Dust swirled in the air as a hot wind swept across the plains, and even the genetically engineered livestock stirred uneasily, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. Kale yawned and stretched, thinking about the day ahead. His life had been simple for years. Check the livestock, repair the fences, maintain the irrigation system, and hope that nothing tried to destroy his ranch. But since Selene's arrival, his life had grown complicated. In a good way, he reminded himself. She was unlike anyone he had ever known, and though he tried to act normal around her, her presence made his chest tighten in ways he didn't fully understand. Selene was already up when he stepped outside. She moved among the livestock with quiet confidence, her eyes scanning every movement. She knelt beside a small herd of livestock, running her hands gently along their hides. One of the creatures, a large four-legged animal with copper-colored fur, had a small limp. Selene's hand rested on its shoulder and almost immediately the animal relaxed. Kale approached, amazed. "How do you do that?" he asked. Selene looked up at him, her expression calm and focused. "Observation," she said simply. "Animals communicate through subtle cues. Once you learn to read them, you can understand what they need." Kale scratched his head. "I've lived with these animals for years. I know them better than anyone, but it's like you can speak their language." She smiled faintly. "I've had practice. But anyone can learn if they pay attention." He felt a mix of admiration and unease. She made everything look so easy. And yet, Kale realized surviving on Solara Prime required skill, intelligence, and intuition. Maybe she was exactly the partner he needed after all. The day passed quickly. Selene moved from task to task, repairing broken fence panels, adjusting the irrigation system, and even recalibrating the solar collectors with surprising speed. Kale watched, impressed. He had assumed she would need guidance, but she seemed capable of understanding the land and technology better than most settlers he had known. By mid-afternoon, Kale decided to test her further. He led her to the outskirts of the ranch, where the terrain became rougher and the wind stronger. "There's a storm coming," he said. "Could be dangerous for the herd." Selene glanced at the sky, her eyes narrowing slightly. Yes, the wind patterns indicate a dust storm. We need to move the animals to the shelter before it hits. Kale's jaw tightened. Moving the livestock was no easy task. The terrain was rough, the animals were restless, and the approaching storm made everything worse. But Selene didn't hesitate. She organized the animals with a clear command, her voice calm but firm. The herd followed her guidance, moving in neat lines toward the safety of the biodome shelter. Kale followed behind, keeping watch for stragglers. By the time the storm hit, the livestock were safe and the ranch stood secure. Kale leaned against the fence, breathing hard. You did that like it was nothing." Selene shook her head. "It's all about preparation. Humans survive because we think ahead, adapt, and act. This storm is just another challenge, and we are capable of handling it." Kale looked at her and felt a spark of hope. Maybe humanity wasn't just surviving on Solara Prime. Maybe, with people like Selene, they could thrive. As the dust storm raged outside, the two of them worked together, securing equipment and double-checking the barriers around the ranch. Selene moved with precision, and Kale began to notice something else. She didn't just react to problems, she anticipated them. Every action she took was measured, purposeful, and effective. After the storm passed, the ranch looked almost untouched. Kale exhaled, amazed. "I don't know what I expected," he admitted, "but you've changed the way I see this place." Selene smiled, brushing dust from her hair. "The frontier is harsh, but it's also full of opportunity. We just have to be ready to take it." Kale felt a strange warmth in his chest. He had spent years surviving alone, relying on his own skills. But with Selene here, he realized that survival could be more than just enduring. It could be thriving. That evening, Kale and Selene sat outside the ranch house, watching the twin moons rise over the plains. The air was cool now, carrying a faint metallic scent of the distant mountains. Kale handed her a simple meal, but she looked at it with interest, not criticism. "You're learning quickly," she said, taking a bite. "This is basic sustenance, but it's exactly what we need after a long day. Efficiency matters as much as taste in survival situations." Kale laughed. "I didn't think anyone would ever teach me about efficiency in eating." Selene smiled. "There's a lot you can learn on the frontier, Kale, and a lot we can achieve if we work together." Kale nodded, but a shadow crossed his face. Do you think about Earth much, or are you only focused on this planet?" She paused, looking at the horizon. "Earth is home, yes. But humanity isn't bound to one planet. We survive because we adapt. Solara Prime is a challenge, but also an opportunity. If we fail here, humanity loses a foothold. I don't want that to happen. That's why I'm here." Kale felt a chill run down his spine. He had always thought of himself as a survivor, but Selene spoke of something bigger than his ranch, bigger than himself. She spoke of humanity, of survival on a planetary scale, and somehow he found himself inspired. The next few days passed in a blur of work. Selene taught Kale better ways to manage the livestock, repair the ranch equipment, and even analyze weather patterns. Her knowledge was vast, covering both practical skills and advanced technology. Kale realized she was unlike any partner he had ever imagined. She was more than a bride. She was a strategist, a teacher, and a survivor. But life on Solara Prime wasn't just about work. Kale noticed that Selene often paused to watch the stars at night, her gaze distant and thoughtful. Sometimes she would trace her fingers across the sky as if mapping constellations he couldn't see. He asked her once what she was doing. "Planning," she said simply. "Humans aren't alone in the universe. I'm always thinking ahead, considering potential threats and preparing for them. It's part of surviving out here." Kale felt a mixture of awe and concern. She spoke as if danger was always just beyond the horizon, and maybe she was right. Solara Prime was isolated, and humanity's enemies could appear at any time. His thoughts were interrupted one morning when a scout droid returned from the northern plains. Its sensors had detected movement, large, unfamiliar creatures moving toward the settlement. Cale's heart sank. He had expected occasional threats, but nothing like this. Selene stepped forward, her expression calm but resolute. "We need to observe first," she said. "Determine their numbers, their technology, and their intent. Humans survive by gathering information before acting." Cale nodded, realizing how much he had learned from her already. She didn't panic, didn't react emotionally. She analyzed, strategized, and prepared. Humanity's strength, he realized, wasn't just in brute force. It was in intelligence, adaptability, and foresight. Over the next few hours, they worked together to monitor the approaching threat. Selene instructed Cale on how to use the scout droid more effectively, setting up sensors, marking paths, and identifying signs of enemy movement. Cale watched in amazement as she connected small pieces of information into a clear picture of what they might face. By evening, they had a plan. If the creatures, clearly alien raiders, attacked, they would be ready. They fortified the ranch, setting traps, reinforcing barriers, and positioning the livestock to minimize risk. Selene's calm and methodical approach inspired Cale, who realized that humanity's future on the frontier depended not only on strength, but on intelligence and teamwork. As the twin moons rose again, Cale felt a deep sense of respect for Selene. She was not the plain, timid bride he had expected. She was extraordinary, and somehow he felt a spark of excitement for what the future might bring, even with danger looming on the horizon. That night, as he lay in his small quarters, Cale thought about the frontier, about survival, and about the strange, incredible woman who had walked into his life. He had expected simplicity. Instead, he had found challenge, excitement, and hope. And somehow, he knew that with Selene by his side, humanity could survive. No, thrive, on Solara Prime. The sun had barely risen over the red plains of Solara Prime when Cale Thorne noticed a change in the horizon. The dust shimmered oddly, as if disturbed by movement far off in the distance. His first thought was that it was another dust storm, but something about it felt wrong. His instincts, honed over years on the frontier, told him that this was no ordinary weather. Selene, standing beside him, noticed it too. "Cale," she said, pointing toward the horizon, "those aren't natural patterns. Something is coming." Cale squinted, trying to make out shapes in the heat haze. And then he saw them, large, moving forms, metallic and strange, glinting under the harsh sunlight. His stomach dropped. "Alien raiders." "They're scouting," Selene said calmly. "Or maybe searching for something. We need to prepare." Cale's heart raced, but he forced himself to stay calm. This was life on the frontier. Danger was never far away. But facing an organized alien force, that was something else entirely. They rushed back to the ranch, Selene giving clear instructions as they moved. "Cale, we need to secure the livestock, reinforce the barriers, and position the scout droids around the perimeter. If they are hostile, we need to know their numbers and their weapons." Cale nodded, impressed by her clarity under pressure. She wasn't just reacting, she was planning. Her mind was always several steps ahead, and Cale realized that this was what humanity needed to survive in a universe full of unknown threats. By mid-morning, the raiders were closer. They moved like a pack, organized and efficient, their weapons glowing faintly under the sun. Cale and Selene watched from the ridge overlooking the ranch. "They're not here by accident," Selene said. "They're looking for something. Maybe supplies, maybe information, maybe us." Cale's jaw tightened. He had always thought of Solara Prime as isolated, a safe place for his ranch, but now it felt vulnerable. And yet, looking at Selene, he felt a surge of confidence. If anyone could help them survive this, it was her. "Here's what we'll do," Selene continued. "We'll use the terrain to our advantage. Humans are adaptable. They can use the land, the dust, and the technology we have to even the odds." Cale followed her instructions, helping to fortify the ranch. They set up traps, camouflaged defenses, and positioned scout droids in strategic locations. Selene taught him how to anticipate enemy movements, how to exploit weaknesses, and how to think like the raiders. By afternoon, the first attack came. The raiders moved in with speed and precision, attempting to breach the ranch's perimeter. Cale's heart pounded as he activated defensive systems and guided the livestock to safety. But the raiders' technology was advanced, their movements coordinated, and for a moment, Cale feared they might be overwhelmed. Then Selene took charge. She moved like a commander, giving clear orders to Cale and the droids. She used the dust storms to obscure their positions, directed traps with pinpoint accuracy, and anticipated the raiders' tactics before they even acted. Cale watched in awe as the tide of battle shifted. "You're incredible," he shouted over the roar of the attack. Selene didn't answer. She was focused, calculating, precise. Every move she made protected the ranch and the people within it. Cale realized that she was more than just a survival expert. She was a strategist, a leader, and a symbol of what humans could achieve when they combined intelligence with courage. The raiders tried again and again, but each attempt was met with human ingenuity and determination. Traps they had set caught the alien vehicles off guard, forcing them to retreat and regroup. Scout droids relayed information faster than the raiders could anticipate, allowing Cale and Selene to stay one step ahead. Finally, after hours of fighting, the raiders pulled back. They hovered for a moment on the horizon, assessing their failure, and then retreated into the distance. Cale sank to the ground, exhausted but exhilarated. He turned to Selene, who stood tall and calm despite the chaos around them. You did this," he said, disbelief in his voice. "We survived because of you." Selene shook her head. "We survived because of us. Humans are resilient. We adapt, we learn, and we fight back. That's why we survive, Cale. That's why humanity thrives, even in places like Solara Prime." Cale felt a deep sense of admiration. He had always believed in human strength, but seeing it in action, guided by Selene's intelligence and skill, made him proud in a way he had never experienced. She was extraordinary, and he was beginning to realize that she wasn't just a partner for the ranch, she was a partner for survival, for humanity itself. After the battle, they surveyed the ranch. There was damage, but nothing that couldn't be repaired. The livestock were safe, and the defensive systems had held. Cale felt a surge of relief, followed by a sense of purpose. Humanity wasn't just surviving on this harsh world, they were winning. And with Selene by his side, the future felt brighter than ever. That night they sat outside the ranch house, exhausted but alert. The twin moons cast a pale glow over the plains, and the stars twinkled faintly in the clear sky. Cale offered Selene a drink, and she accepted with a small smile. "You were amazing today," he said quietly. I don't know what I would have done without you." Selene's eyes met his. "You would have survived. Humans always find a way, but together we can do more than survive. We can thrive. And that's what the frontier needs, humans who are ready to face the challenges and overcome them." Cale nodded slowly. He had expected a simple bride, someone to share the quiet life of the ranch. Instead, he had found a partner who challenged him, inspired him, and reminded him of the true strength of humanity. The days that followed were a mix of recovery and preparation. Cale and Selene repaired the ranch, strengthened the defenses, and trained for the possibility of another attack. But through it all, Cale noticed something else. Their partnership was growing stronger. They moved in sync, anticipating each other's needs and actions. And though he hadn't admitted it to himself yet, Cale felt a connection he had never known before. One evening, as they finished reinforcing a section of the barrier, Cale asked, "Selene, do you ever get scared?" She looked at him, her eyes thoughtful. "Of course. Fear is natural, but fear doesn't control me. It teaches me, guides me, and reminds me to be prepared. Humans survive not because we are fearless, but because we face our fears and act anyway." Cale felt a shiver run down his spine. Her words weren't just about survival. They were about life itself. And he realized that she was teaching him something far more important than ranching skills or tactical planning. She was teaching him to believe in humanity's potential, even in the face of overwhelming odds. As the twin moons rose once more, Kale watched Selene moving among the livestock, checking their health and comfort with careful hands. He felt a sense of awe and gratitude. She was more than he had ever imagined, and somehow he knew that together they could face anything the frontier or the universe threw at them. And deep down, Kale understood that the battle against the Raiders was only the beginning. Solara Prime was a harsh world, and the galaxy beyond it was even harsher. But with Selene by his side, he felt ready for whatever came next. Because humanity, he realized, didn't just survive. Humans adapted, humans fought, and humans thrived. And on Solara Prime, Kale and Selene were living proof of that truth. The morning sun rose over Solara Prime's endless plains, casting long shadows across Kale Thorne's ranch. The events of the last alien attack still lingered in his mind, but today was different. Today they weren't merely surviving, they were preparing. Selene moved among the livestock, checking their health and adjusting feeding routines. Kale observed her, noting how every action she took seemed purposeful, precise, and calm. She didn't just manage the ranch, she optimized it, making every task more efficient and every system more resilient. Kale, she called, glancing over her shoulder. We need to strengthen the barriers further. The last attack showed where we are vulnerable. Kale nodded. I've already started reinforcing the east perimeter, but we'll need more materials. The mountains have plenty of rock, and the solar panels can be reinforced with alloy strips from the storage dome. Selene's eyes lit up. Good. Let's work together and make this ranch a fortress. Humans survive on the frontier not just because of skill, but because of preparation and ingenuity. Kale felt a spark of pride. Humanity's strength, he realized, wasn't just in numbers or weapons. It was in adaptability, in the ability to think, to plan, to innovate. And with Selene guiding him, he felt their ranch could survive anything. They worked side by side, hauling materials and reinforcing walls, moving with a rhythm that grew familiar. Kale noticed that he no longer had to give her instructions. Selene anticipated every need, every obstacle, and every adjustment. It was as if she had been born for this environment, for this life. As the day wore on, settlers from nearby ranches began to arrive. Word of the alien threat had spread, and many had come seeking guidance, shelter, and training. Kale felt a mixture of pride and responsibility. His ranch, once a lonely outpost, was becoming a hub for survival. Selene addressed the group, her voice calm but authoritative. We are humans. We have survived worse than these raiders. Together, we can build defenses, train our people, and protect what is ours. The frontier is harsh, but it rewards preparation, cooperation, and courage. The settlers listened, captivated. They had feared the raiders, but Selene's words ignited determination in their hearts. Kale watched her, amazed. She wasn't just a partner in survival, she was a leader, a beacon of human ingenuity and courage. Over the next few days, they trained the settlers. Kale taught them basic ranching skills, animal care, and the use of simple defensive tools. Selene focused on strategy, communication, and adaptability. She taught them how to anticipate enemy movements, how to use the terrain to their advantage, and how to coordinate as a group. Kale realized that the settlers were learning faster than he ever could have imagined. Humans thrived when they worked together, he thought. It wasn't just about strength. It was about intelligence, adaptability, and cooperation. And with Selene leading them, humanity's potential on Solara Prime felt limitless. As evening fell, Kale and Selene sat together outside the main building, watching the twin moons rise. The settlers were inside, eating and resting after a long day of work and training. You've changed everything, Kale said quietly. I never imagined the ranch could be like this. I never imagined us. Selene looked at him, her eyes thoughtful. The frontier changes people, Kale. It challenges them, but it also reveals what they are capable of. You've always been strong, capable, and determined. You just didn't realize how much until now. Kale felt a warmth spread through him. And you're amazing, Selene. I've never met anyone like you. You make everything possible, and somehow, you make me feel like I can do more than survive. I can thrive. Selene smiled softly. That's what humans do, Kale. We don't just survive. We adapt, we grow, and we overcome challenges that seem impossible. And when we face them together, we become stronger than any individual could ever be. The next morning, Kale and Selene set out to survey the surrounding plains. Their goal was to find vantage points and resources, to ensure the settlers and the ranch would be prepared for any future attacks. The land was harsh and unforgiving, but Kale felt a new sense of purpose. Selene moved confidently, scanning the terrain, noting hazards and identifying natural choke points. Here, she said, pointing to a ridge overlooking the plains. We can place scouts here. They will have a clear view of any approaching threat, and the elevation gives us a tactical advantage. Kale nodded. Good idea. I'll set up communication nodes here so we can coordinate with the ranch. Humans may be outnumbered, but we can always outsmart them. They worked through the day, scouting, setting markers, and planning defensive measures. Kale felt a bond growing between them, one forged through shared labor, trust, and determination. He realized that Selene was no longer just a partner in survival. She was a partner in life, someone he could rely on completely. That evening, as they returned to the ranch, a messenger droid arrived from a nearby settlement. Its sensors had detected unusual activity on the northern plains, signs of alien movement that suggested the previous raiders were not acting alone. Selene's expression grew serious. They are returning, she said, and this time they will be better prepared. We need to be ready. Kale's jaw tightened. He had hoped that the first attack was a one-time event, but now it was clear that the frontier was only growing more dangerous. Yet, alongside the fear, he felt determination. With Selene, the settlers, and their combined skills, they could face the challenge. Over the next few days, the ranch transformed. Fortifications were strengthened, traps were refined, and the settlers trained rigorously. Kale worked alongside them, sharing his knowledge and learning from Selene's expertise. He watched as people who had once been fearful gained confidence, inspired by Selene's calm authority and human ingenuity. One evening, after a long day of training, Kale and Selene stood on the ridge, looking out over the plains. The twin moons cast silver light across the red landscape, and the air was filled with the quiet hum of activity from the ranch below. You've changed this place, Kale said softly. It's not just a ranch anymore, it's a community, a stronghold, a symbol of human resilience. Selene turned to him, her eyes meeting his. Humans are capable of more than we often give ourselves credit for. This ranch, this community, it's proof, and you've been a part of it every step of the way. Kale felt a surge of pride and admiration. And you, Selene, you've taught me so much. About survival, about strategy, about humans. I never imagined anyone could inspire me like this. Selene smiled. You inspire me too, Kale. Human ingenuity, courage, and determination are remarkable, and together we can face whatever comes next. As the moons rose higher, casting long shadows over the plains, Kale realized something important. The frontier wasn't just a place of danger and isolation. It was a place of growth, challenge, and opportunity. And with Selene by his side, he felt ready to face whatever the universe might throw at them. The coming days would bring new challenges, he knew. The alien raiders would return, stronger and more organized. But Kale was no longer the lone rancher who had awaited a simple bride. He was a leader, a protector, and part of a growing human community capable of facing any threat. And Selene, she was more than he had ever expected. more than a partner, more than a friend. She was proof of humanity's potential, a symbol of what humans could achieve when they worked together, adapted, and never gave up. As they stood together, watching the plains stretch endlessly under the twin moons, Cale felt a sense of hope and determination he had never known before. The frontier was harsh, the galaxy beyond was dangerous, but humanity would endure. Because humans didn't just survive, they adapted, they fought, and they thrived. And Cale and Selene together were ready to prove it. The red plains of Solara Prime stretched endlessly under the twin suns, their harsh light glinting off the reinforced barriers of Cale Thorne's ranch. Over the past weeks, the ranch had transformed from a solitary outpost into a stronghold, a hub for settlers, livestock, and hope. Cale stood atop the ridge with Selene beside him, scanning the horizon. Today, the alien raiders would return. This time, there would be no mistakes. "Are you ready?" Selene asked, her voice calm but with an edge of determination. Cale nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility but also the thrill of purpose. "I've never been more ready. We've prepared for everything they can throw at us." Selene's eyes gleamed. "Good. Remember, humans survive not because we are the strongest, but because we adapt. Use the terrain, use the traps, use your mind. They won't expect how clever we can be." Cale glanced at the settlers, all of them positioned behind barricades, droids, and strategically placed defenses. He felt a swell of pride. They had trained together, worked together, and now they would fight together. Humanity was not alone. On Solara Prime, they were strong, united, and ready. Hours passed in tense anticipation. The plains seemed quiet, almost deceptively calm. Then the distant shimmer of alien vehicles appeared on the horizon. This time they were larger, faster, and more organized than before. The raiders had learned, and Cale knew that the coming battle would be their greatest challenge yet. Selene placed a hand on his shoulder. "Stay focused. Follow the plan. Humans win by thinking ahead." Cale drew a deep breath and nodded. Together, they moved along the ridge, monitoring the enemy's approach and communicating with the settlers and scout droids. Every sensor was active, every trap checked, every position reinforced. The first wave of raiders struck as the suns reached their zenith. They moved with precision, but Cale and Selene were ready. Traps hidden in the dust, and rocks disabled several of the raiders' vehicles before they even reached the ranch perimeter. Scout droids relayed their movements, allowing human defenders to counterattack with timing and accuracy. Cale was in the thick of it, directing settlers, helping reposition livestock, and coordinating with Selene. She moved among them like a commander, calm and authoritative, directing energy and resources where they were most needed. Her strategies anticipated the raiders' every move, turning what could have been chaos into a carefully orchestrated defense. Hours stretched into the afternoon, and yet the human defenses held. The raiders tried to flank the ranch, but Selene had predicted it. Barricades funneled them into kill zones, and Cale's ingenuity, simple but effective frontier tactics, turned their strength against them. "Cale now!" Selene shouted, pointing to a ridge where a group of raiders was attempting to bypass the main defenses. Cale sprinted with a few volunteers, placing a series of energy nets that immobilized the raiders' vehicles. The settlers followed with disciplined precision, showing skill, courage, and determination. Cale realized something in that moment. Humans weren't just fighting, they were thriving. Selene moved forward, her presence both inspiring and commanding. She coordinated attacks, redistributed resources, and adjusted strategies on the fly. The raiders, advanced as they were, couldn't anticipate the adaptability and ingenuity of the humans defending Solara Prime. By late afternoon, the battle turned decisively in humanity's favor. The raiders, disoriented and damaged, began to retreat. Cale watched as their ships lifted into the sky, leaving behind wreckage and a sense of awe. Humanity had not just survived, they had won. Kale and Selene surveyed the battlefield, seeing the ranch standing tall, the settlers unharmed, and the animals safe. He felt a rush of gratitude and pride. The victory wasn't just about strength, it was about preparation, intelligence, teamwork, and courage. It was humanity's ingenuity at work. "Look at them," Kale said quietly, gesturing to the returning settlers who were helping repair minor damages and tending to the wounded. "We did this together. Humans, we can do anything when we work together." Selene smiled, her eyes shining with quiet pride. "Exactly. This is what humans are capable of. Strength, intelligence, and adaptability. The frontier is harsh, but we thrive because we face it together." As evening fell, the twin moons rose, casting silver light across the plains. Kale and Selene stood atop the ridge, looking down at the ranch and the settlers. They were safe, prepared, and ready for whatever came next. Kale felt a deep sense of accomplishment, not just for himself but for humanity. He turned to Selene. "I never expected any of this. I thought life here would be lonely, quiet, simple. But you changed everything. You taught me that humans don't just survive. We adapt, we grow, we fight, and we win." Selene reached out and took his hand. "And you taught me something too, Kale. That humans are brave, resilient, and capable of more than we often imagine. Together, we're stronger than any challenge." Kale felt a warmth in his chest, a mixture of admiration, gratitude, and something deeper. The frontier had brought them together, but it had also shown them what humanity was truly capable of. Over the next few days, Kale and Selene led the settlers in rebuilding and improving the ranch. They repaired damages from the battle, reinforced defenses, and shared knowledge that would allow the community to thrive in the harsh environment. Kale felt a deep sense of pride as he watched settlers learn, adapt, and grow stronger under Selene's guidance and his own experience. Selene trained the younger settlers, teaching them strategy, communication, and survival skills. Kale helped them understand the land, the animals, and the importance of resourcefulness. Together, they created a community that was prepared for anything. One evening, after the settlers had finished their work and the ranch was quiet, Kale and Selene sat outside, watching the stars. The plains were calm now, but the memory of the battle lingered. "Do you think they'll return?" Kale asked quietly. Selene shook her head. "Perhaps. But we'll be ready. Humans are adaptable. We learn from every challenge and we improve. Solara Prime is our home now and we'll defend it." Kale felt a sense of certainty he had never known before. Humanity's future wasn't guaranteed, but with courage, intelligence, and determination, they could survive and thrive anywhere. "I used to think the frontier was just a place to survive," Kale said. "But now I see, it's a place to grow, to build, to become stronger. And with you, Selene, everything feels possible." Selene smiled softly, taking his hand. "Humans are amazing, Kale, and together we are unstoppable." As the twin moons rose higher, casting their silver glow across the plains, Kale realized that he had found more than just a partner. He had found a symbol of humanity's potential, a partner in survival, leadership, and life itself. The frontier was harsh, the galaxy beyond even harsher, but humanity had proven its strength. Kale and Selene stood together, looking out over their thriving ranch, their growing community, and the endless possibilities of the plains of Solara Prime. And in that moment, Kale understood the truth. Humans didn't just survive. Humans adapted, humans fought, humans learned, and humans thrived. Solara Prime was just the beginning. Together, Kale and Selene were ready to face the universe. Because humanity's frontier wasn't a place of weakness, it was a place of strength, courage, and limitless potential. And they would prove it, one challenge at a time.